The Toronto Raptors dodged a massive bullet this offseason as reports came out all over the place that Masai Ujiri was trying to land a big fish this year's offseason due to the pressure put on him by this ownership group, which inevitably fired him. But this latest update would have been disastrous for the future of the Toronto Raptors, and frankly, it would have also been bad in the short term. So we're going to break down what this latest leaked trade offer from the Toronto Raptors was, why it was made, why it was declined, and how the Toronto Raptors got very, very lucky in this situation, and if this is signs for things to come for the future of this Toronto Raptors team. So lots of stuff to really dive into, sink our teeth into in this video. But folks, I can't thank you guys enough for all the support we've been getting as of late. We're very, very close to that 39,000 subscriber milestone, and then, the big one of 40K. So if you are enjoying the daily Toronto Raptors updates and want to stay up to date with everything that's going on, hit that subscribe button down below. It's free, and we'll make sure you don't miss any single update regarding this Toronto Raptors team, including these scary updates in terms of moves that almost, crippled the franchise moving forward to the future. So what's going on? What are these latest updates? Because we saw all the reports at the start of summer about Brian Windhorst saying, hey, the Raptors are a team that's starting to make noise within the league about a big fish. And then beyond that point, behind all the animations, the graphics, the fun little memes, and everything that was coming out, the Toronto Raptors subsequently got linked to pretty well every player out there in the NBA for a 2-week stretch. Whether it was Kevin Durant, whether it was Ja Morant, whether it was Sabonis, whoever the heck was out there that averaged a few points per game, the Toronto Raptors ended up getting linked to them at the start of this offseason, including Giannis, all of these different players. So why was that the case? What was going on? Well, there was a lot of pressure on Masai Ujiri to get a big trade, get a big deal done in order to keep his job, essentially. And he couldn't get a deal done, which ended up leading him to, getting fired, getting parted ways, whatever diction, whatever vocabulary you want to lose. The ownership group parted ways with Masai Ujiri. So that is what it is. But how desperate did this situation get? And that's the big question a lot of Raptors fans really had, because, we take a look at all the reports, we take a look at everything, and one of the big ones was there were reports that the Toronto Raptors offered the 9th overall pick for Derrick White. I'm told that's true, but that happened a month and a half ago after the Jason Tatum injury, and Boston laughed at that offer and said, no, we need way more than the number 9 pick for Derrick White. So this is something that isn't new news. This isn't something that came out. There was a lot of back and forth in terms of whether or not this was a valuable move for the Toronto Raptors, because box score-wise, Derrick White isn't, number 1 pick, and then, of course, the assets that would have had to been attached to it, like an RJ Barrett. Some people look at that, especially 31 years old. Does this make a ton of sense? Of course, he's a very amazing defender, great role player, can knock down the three-point shot at elite rate, 38%, 43% on quarter threes, 16, 5, and 5. Derrick White is a very good basketball player. I think 1 for 1, certainly for the number 9 pick, it would be a straight-up good move. And even though I've been on the keep RJ bandwagon without a doubt, I want to see how this team looks with RJ Barrett in the starting lineup next season. I can see how this would be a reasonable move for the Toronto Raptors in making a trade for RJ, Derrick White, for the number 9 pick. Would I have been super happy about it? Probably not, but I get it. I'm not going to come out here and say, oh, the Toronto Raptors just threw away the future of their franchise or something along those lines if they make that move. I think in the short term, that's valuable. Long term, there's question marks about it, but that is neither here nor there, because that didn't happen. The Raptors got, quote, laughed out the gym or whatever from Brad Stevens when that move was offered. So what are we talking about here, and why is Jrue Holiday in the thumbnail of this video? Well, this is where things that just came out, just leaked that came out. So apparently from Jake Fisher, he came out and said the Raptors offered the Celtics the 9th pick in the NBA draft for Jrue Holiday. And the Celtics decide to take the Trailblazers offer instead, which is genuinely one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. And this is not because Jrue Holiday is bad. In fact, Jrue Holiday is a phenomenal basketball player. Do not take this the wrong way. Don't say if we inserted Jrue Holiday into this team that he would be bad, he would be a bad, especially prime Jrue Holiday, absolute beast, phenom, great stuff. Maybe if Immanuel Quickley's contract was attached to this rather than RJ Barrett's, there's more of an argument to be had in regards to this deal, this move. And, I don't imagine RJ Barrett was the player attached to this, but the number 9 overall pick, which ended up becoming CMB, right? Which ended up becoming a guy that I am very, very excited about his defensive upside, potential, all that stuff for a young team. Giving up a lottery pick like that in a loaded NBA draft class is just a massive, massive risk. But what's going on with this? What's going on with this here? Because the Boston Celtics ended up agreeing to a deal that brought back Trailblazers point guard Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks. So what this screams to me is that, this was an offer of Immanuel Quickley and the 9th pick rather than RJ Barrett. Just because Immanuel Quickley's contract is longer, it's bigger, and the Toronto Raptors basically just wanted to get a bigger name and got Jrue Holiday to run their point guard spot, even though he's more naturally two out there in recent seasons. So that's a less bad, and would have the movement folks, like myself, happier this move happened. Again, if this is RJ Barrett in this trade package, and that would have been way more worse, way bad, really bad for this franchise, for this organization. So that's the real reason I think this deal was declined. But I'm an RJ, I believe Immanuel Quickley is very undervalued, but the Celtics ended up going this direction. They didn't even get the 2 second-round picks because Jrue Holiday ended up being crazy injured, and that's the first thing. That would have been a disaster class of this move. And Edward Rogers, whoever forced this package, whether it was Masai, whether it was Bobby Webster, tried to get this going. Jrue Holiday has a very bad injury physical. So that led to this deal. The 2 second-round picks essentially being plucked away from this package, from this move. So that's the first thing, that the Raptors dodged a major bullet on that front. But I think a lot of people don't understand what contract Jrue Holiday has, how this is looking. I mean, for the next few seasons, so the next 3 years, Jrue Holiday is getting paid $32 million, $34 million, $37 million. That is way more money than an RJ Barrett contract is right now. So that's why I think it's the Immanuel Quickley deal that made more sense in terms of that deal actually happening. It's a longer contract. The Boston Celtics were cap struck, so that's why this deal didn't end up going down. But realistically, Jrue Holiday's a great defender and stuff like that. The guy only averaged 11 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists last year. He's 35 years old, 6'4", 35% from the three-point line, only 30% from the corners. Again, I love that the Toronto Raptors are getting in their defensive dog era. Jrue Holiday in his prime would exactly fit that, but at 35 years old, giving up a number 9 pick, and regardless of what you want to say about Immanuel Quickley, heck, even RJ Barrett's contract, giving up all that for Jrue Holiday would have been a disaster class move for this organization. It wouldn't have been smart. It would have been right. It would have been savvy. And frankly, I'm very, very happy that the cap situation in regards to the Boston Celtics ended up having them decline this trade package. Very much a lucky, fluky move the Raptors went in. But now this raises the question, what's the philosophy of the Toronto Raptors going to be moving forward? Because Masai Ujiri was put in a very, very tough spot to make a big splash, to make a big move in order to keep his job for this season. But is this what, once we get a new president of basketball operations, is this what Edward Rogers, is this what the organization is going to be forcing the Toronto Raptors to do? Is this what they're going to, because we saw this trend, and maybe this is Masai, maybe it wasn't, but as I broke down in a recent video today, Masai Ujiri was the driving force behind grabbing Brandon Ingram at this year's trade deadline. Some people thought it was a little bit too fast, but, it's Masai Ujiri's pushing. So was this Masai's idea of just pushing forward this rebuild in order to keep his job and get it faster and all that? Or is this, from the top-down ownership group forcing the Toronto Raptors to rush into specific moves? Now, I'm happy with the Brandon Ingram. I thought that was a good judgment, but this Jrue Holiday is down the same line of thinking, but just way further off the cliff in terms of how it impacts the Toronto Raptors' future. So I don't know. It's a weird situation, weird thing to deal with. We'll keep you posted in terms of how this Raptors team is going to be negotiating, what leaks, what updates are coming out in the future. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Anyways, you guys are the best. Hit that subscribe button. I'm signing out. Cheers.